years ago wrote, "What we become depends on what we read after all the professors have finished with us. The greatest university of all," he wrote, "is a collection of books." And I have a dear friend who is a marvelous speaker. He bills himself as Charles Tremendous Jones, and he is indeed tremendous. He is always telling his audiences, "You will be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read." Let me repeat that. You will be the same person in 5 years as you are today, except for the people you meet and the books you read. So why not resolve to maybe make a slight alteration in your daily routine? And those of you, and I know there are many out there who have people under their supervision, suggest that they do the same thing. The next night that you're free, instead of collapsing in front of that television set at home, why not take a little trip down to your local library? Walk in, find that special shelf of books that's in every library, that gold mine, that shelf containing books on success, how to achieve it, and how to hold on to it after you get it. Walk up and introduce yourself to some of the most powerful people who have ever lived. People like Napoleon Hill, Norman Vincent Peale, Maxwell Maltz, Dorothea Brande, W. Clement Stone. They're waiting at this very minute to help you, to guide you, and to teach you the rules of the game. Of course, there's a little problem. You have got to go to them. I did many years ago. And it didn't take long for that miserable bum standing in the rain to become not much more than just a bad memory. Thank God. Another important and ageless secret that I had to learn with pain and tears, I had to learn them all with pain and tears. Thick up here. It takes a while. Is that you can never make progress in your life until you appreciate the assets that you already possess. Now, I can always picture, whenever I say that, I know that somebody is out there thinking, I got bills up to here, my car is falling apart, we're a month behind on the rent, kids are talking about college, and this turkey's up here talking about my assets. So let's take an inventory. Let's take an inventory right now so that you realize how valuable, how precious you really are. And let's put a dollar value, if you'd like, on some of these things you have going in your life right now, tonight, at this time. What's it worth to live in this great country? Where would you rather live? What's it worth to be associated with the fine company that you represent? What's your career worth if you remind yourself that probably 95% of the world's population would gladly give up 20 years of their life to change places with any of you? How about your freedom? Put a dollar value on that. How about those you love and who love you? How much would you take to give them up? Your eyes, would you take $1 million for your eyes? Your hands, your feet, 5 million, 10 million? You're really quite wealthy, aren't you? And if it came to a showdown, you wouldn't change what you have right now, tonight, for all the gold in Fort Knox. Several months ago, I did a live television show in Los Angeles, and on the panel with me was a very famous American woman author who shall remain nameless. Somehow we got off to talking about our kids. And I had just seen the last kid leave home before that, and we had an empty nest, and I didn't like it. I miss my kids. And she got off on a tantrum about her 2 teenage sons who were still living at home, and I kept hearing one word, bonkers. These kids are driving me bonkers. I'm always picking up behind them, bonkers. I'm going bonkers. Stereos tuned to different stations, very loud. They're driving me bonkers, bonkers, bonkers. I listened to it for about 4 or 5 minutes, and finally I stood up and kind of leaned over, and I know I was rude, and I said, and I said, you know, the day is going to come when you're going to walk down that corridor at home and you're going to go past 2 very quiet rooms. And then you're going to say, where did they go? So why don't you go home tonight, I said, and give them both a big hug and tell them you love them, and for God's sakes, don't wait. Another old secret. You don't know how good you are. Wise men have been telling you for centuries that you're only using about 10% of your potential. Now, you're no fool. When you hear that now, you know how to play the game. You're wise. You nod your head like, you really, yeah, you buy that. You're right. Yeah, I'm only using about 10%. But we really don't believe them when they tell us that. Most of us are too busy instead thinking up reasons why we know we can't make it. And when somebody else does succeed, how quick we are to think, wasn't he or she lucky? It's so much easier to feel sorry for yourself, isn't it, than to realize that you are the greatest miracle in the world. And your destiny is in your hands and your hands alone, no matter how you kid yourself. You are in complete control of your tomorrow. But so many of us, I'm afraid, are like a duck that we had in our backyard back in Scottsdale, Arizona for many years. When my youngest son, Matthew, was in the 8th grade, he came home from school one day carrying a shoebox with holes punched in the cover, which should have caused us great concern right there. In the shoebox was a little yellow duckling. They had hatched this little guy in their biology class, and they nurtured him for 5 weeks. And then they had a raffle, and my kid won the duck. So Matt and Daddy went to the lumber company. We got some lumber, and over the corner of our backyard, we built a little hut. Matt did a great job. He painted it white. He carved out a doorway. And over the doorway in red paint, he painted Disco duck. Daddy went to the hardware store, and I got 18-inch chicken wire, and we ran a corral around this little setup so this little guy wouldn't go wandering off and get lost. We had Disco for 12 years. Disco grew to be a big, beautiful duck, and Matt went off to college, and guess who got to take care of Disco? We got to be good buddies. And then about 2 years ago, it started one morning early, just at dawn. And we made the mistake, we had built this complex right outside our bedroom. But it started right at dawn, quack, 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 loud. Now, I'd heard this quack for 10 years by then, and I knew every little resonance, every little tone. And I knew that something was bugging Disco. Something was wrong. Disco, you could tell, was a whining, complaining quack, 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 quack. Disco was not happy. Disco had a problem of some sort. Either the water, I didn't change it often enough, or the straw in his hut was wet, or the food was lousy, but something was wrong. Disco had a problem. And it's the same problem that so many of us have. Disco didn't know that if he didn't like the conditions of his life, he had it within himself to change them. He had the power to change the conditions in his life. In Disco's case, if he didn't like things the way they are, the way they were, all Disco had to do was flap his wings and leave. But you see, poor Disco didn't know that he could fly. And neither do you.